don't lose confidence and keep getting in the gym, and don't let the training, don't have a bunch of yes men around you. Again, put yourself in the deep waters that got you to the top, because I think he's one of the most talented fighters in the UFC. He's just got to get his confidence back and get out there and get it done.
The path back to a championship for Ilia Topuria begins with a hard truth. Putting in more hours in the gym won't matter if those hours aren't spent the right way. People close to Dana White's orbit believe the essential shift is cutting out anyone who only tells him what he wants to hear, actively seeking blunt feedback, and stepping into situations that expose every flaw rather than hide it. Topuria is still regarded as one of the most gifted fighters in the UFC, but talent alone won't hand him back a belt or mend the confidence a loss can shake. Reclaiming the title means rebuilding the total certainty in himself that once made him look unbeatable. The question now is what has to change, both physically and mentally, for that championship spark to return.
Exactly where you are. Being aware. What I mean by that is, like, we didn't have losses. You don't have 2 losses in a row, you said, and you still have to know. Like, I had 2 losses where I lost to Patty, then I lost to Ruffy, and everybody's like, oh, he's out the door. What I'm saying is, like, but every fight I knew, like, all right, with Patty, it kicked me and I just slipped and fell.
Rebuilding starts with an honest read of where things stand after a loss. One person close to the situation said that dropping 2 fights made it feel like his career was nearly over. But the scoreline alone doesn't tell the full story. What counts is breaking down exactly how each defeat unfolded. Every technical choice, every emotional response, and figuring out which mistakes are fixable versus which point to something deeper. That kind of clear-eyed evaluation is critical for anyone rebuilding after a setback. But Topuria's situation is different, because he'd never lost before. A seasoned fighter who's already tasted defeat knows one bad night doesn't erase a career. Someone with a perfect record has to learn that the hard way.
Ups and downs through your career to where, like, Ilya's never lost before, right? It's gonna be a lot harder for him to, like, make sure he stays that confidence,
But what I'm saying is still is Ilia has to know. Like, he has to know. Like, all right, I was really dominating him in a lot of fashions, and I could have finished him this way or that way.
Losing comes with the territory in fighting, even for someone who spent years believing it wouldn't happen to him. For Topuria, stepping into that unknown may prove tougher mentally than anything physical he has to fix. He can't just brush off the result, act like nothing changed, or let one outcome define his entire career. He needs to break down every detail of the fight. The exchanges he won, the stretches where he dictated the pace, and the chances he let slip. Remembering that he controlled large parts of that fight keeps a single ending from overriding the whole performance. That kind of unflinching self-review is the base the comeback has to be built on, since it shows the loss may have hinged on a few key decisions, rather than being a total breakdown. From there, the work is pinpointing exactly which choices turned the fight.
I still know I could have got you out of here, but I tried to go for some stupid submission instead of staying on top of you and trying to finish you here, Yeah. And so little things like that where you got to just know.
Sometimes the fight-changing error isn't getting outclassed. It's being just barely off at the wrong moment. A fighter can dominate the action and still come up short by going for a low-percentage submission instead of taking the safer route to victory. That small miscalculation holds a big lesson. Winning often goes to whoever spots the safest path and takes it without overreaching. A champion doesn't need to force something flashy when a simple finish is sitting right there. Topuria's game plan may not have been fundamentally flawed, but at the top level, being slightly off can wipe out everything good that came before it in the fight. Those razor-thin margins are what separate champions from contenders. The hard part is absorbing a costly lesson like that without letting a public, brutal loss turn into lasting mental damage.
You got knocked out, and to go out in that fashion, I got the fucking knockout of the year where I get fucking slept by a spinning back. He throws a Hail Mary sometimes. Guys throws Hail Marys, it fucking land, caught you, you're fucking out.
Yeah.
And so, but you still have to, like, know, I'm trying to explain to people, like, your skills are going to pay the bills.
Even a highlight reel knockout can stem from one desperate all-or-nothing strike. A single moment that ends things without truly reflecting the losing fighter's overall ability. The finish might be violent and hard to forget, but it shouldn't be allowed to wipe out a former champion's belief in the skills that got him there. Those abilities don't vanish because of one perfect punch from an opponent. Timing, technique, athleticism, preparation, fight IQ, none of that disappears in an instant. As one insider put it, skill still pays the bills, but that skill only shows up when the fighter believes in it enough to act without second-guessing. That's why the mental piece of Topuria's comeback might matter just as much as anything he adjusts in striking, wrestling, or conditioning. His ability can carry him back toward gold, but his mindset will decide whether he can actually use that ability when it counts.
Yeah, I mean, skills matter, but you got to have the mentality that you just talked about right now to be able to let those skills shine. Like your mental fortitude is like so much more important than anybody even thinks, and like you just naturally have it. You know, like
I don't know. I'm just speaking facts.
Once the hype dies down, real champions aren't defined only by power, speed, or technical skill. They're defined by a mentality that doesn't crack when things get uncertain. The message from insiders was blunt. Skill matters enormously, but the mindset behind it matters even more. Mental toughness isn't a bonus you add once the training's done. It's the foundation that lets preparation hold up under fear, doubt, fatigue, and adversity. Fighters tend to underrate it because confidence stays invisible right up until it's gone. This isn't just motivational talk. It's a pattern that shows up again and again in combat sports, where fighters with similar talent end up with wildly different careers depending on how they handle a setback. The real question for Topuria is what happens if that mental edge that fueled his rise doesn't come back right away.
Banner Brow, he was undefeated for 10 years, like pound for pound guy, best guy in the world, and I go out and I beat him and he's never the same. Cody Garbrandt, he was undefeated, I go out and beat him, he's never the same. It's like these guys, they lose their, even though they got skill, they lose their confidence and then it just like withers.
The bigger threat isn't the loss itself on Tupuria's record. It's the lingering psychological toll that can outlast the fight by a long stretch. Veteran observers have seen unbeaten fighters, even elite pound-for-pound talents, come back from a first loss as noticeably changed competitors. Cody Garbrandt often gets cited as a case where sheer ability couldn't fully shield him once his confidence, discipline, and composure started slipping. A fighter can keep the same speed, power, and technique, yet hesitation can throw off his reactions, urgency can cloud his judgment, and fear of getting knocked out again can change how he approaches every exchange. That's the real test in front of Topuria now. He used to fight with the certainty of a man who believed he couldn't lose. Now that belief has been tested, he has to build something more solid than untested confidence. Confidence backed by evidence, accountability, sharp preparation, and an honest acceptance of what happened. The lesson is easy to state but hard to live out. Progress comes from listening closely, digging into the details, training smart, and putting himself in situations that expose discomfort instead of shielding his ego. Most fighters look for a shortcut, a magic drill, a new coach, a motivational quote that erases doubt instantly. Real growth doesn't work that way. It's uncomfortable because it forces a fighter to face the weaknesses he'd rather avoid. If he's not uncomfortable, he's probably not improving. A small mental shift can make a massive difference, because what separates an amateur mindset from a professional one isn't just effort. Amateurs look for shortcuts. Professionals commit to principles. Hard work without direction is just noise. But smart work paired with the right mindset creates real, measurable change. The details are where careers get fixed or ruined. A fighter who won't examine them stays stuck in the same loop, while one who does can change his trajectory right away. That's the core lesson behind Tupuria's comeback. Discipline and mentality have to work together, because neither one alone is enough. Repetition without belief becomes robotic, and confidence without technical correction becomes denial. The top tier separates itself by combining both, staying locked on what actually matters instead of noise, and never mistaking motivational talk for real development. Success here isn't complicated, but it is brutally hard. Topuria has to stop chasing comfort, drop the excuses, and apply the lessons daily. He has to trust coaches willing to push back on him, revisit the loss without getting stuck in it, and recognize both what went wrong and the moments that prove his championship-level ability is still there. He can't let one result convince him everything before it was fake. But he also can't act like the result taught him nothing. Finding that balance is something most fighters never quite manage. Some react to a loss by playing it safe. Others overcorrect and start forcing risky exchanges. Both reactions come from the same place of insecurity. The healthier path is staying patient, trusting the skills that built his win streak, and fixing the specific decisions that broke down under pressure. That same destructive cycle has ended plenty of careers. Ignore the mental wound, rush back too soon, chase validation, take another loss, lose even more confidence. Breaking that pattern means understanding, before the next fight, exactly why he made each call, what he saw in each exchange, and whether emotion took over from strategy. Once he works through that, his training can become intentional instead of just reactive. That's why smart preparation and mindset keep coming up as the defining factors. The smallest detail can decide whether he fights freely or hesitates, finishes cleanly or reaches for something risky, stays composed or drifts from the plan. Those are the margins that separate true professionals from talented fighters who never quite reach their ceiling. There's no shortcut that restores a sense of invincibility, because that invincibility was never really real to begin with. What Topuria can build instead is something more lasting. The knowledge that he's been beaten, studied it honestly, and can still perform at the highest level. That kind of confidence holds up under pressure because it doesn't depend on a spotless record. The uncomfortable truth is that success is usually simple in theory and grueling in practice. Cut the excuses, focus on the right details, apply the lesson every single day, and judge the results honestly. It sounds easy to say because living it out while doubt lingers is the hard part. If Topuria can manage that, the loss turns into a lesson instead of a label. If he can't, it may end up shadowing every fight he has afterward. What happens next comes down to whether he treats discomfort as a signal to pull back, or as proof that real progress is happening. He has to trade the old, untested confidence of an unbeaten fighter for the tested confidence of someone who's faced failure and refuses to let it control him. That shift is what separates fighters who simply come back from those who truly grow. Topuria's skill set may still make him one of the most dangerous fighters in the UFC. But how he handles this moment will decide whether he stays a talented ex-champion or becomes an even more complete one. Coming back isn't about pretending the loss didn't happen. It's about listening, analyzing, adjusting, trusting himself, and staying in the deep end until the fear tied to it fades. Once those habits take hold, he'll stop fighting the memory of defeat and start focusing entirely on what's in front of him.